Supper Club by John Armstrong, short film. Town centre, day. Chantelle, an attractive female French chef, 35, walks along a deserted cobbled street. She looks at a weathered charity collector, 49, shaking a bucket with some loose change in it.
Good evening.
It certainly is.
She smiles, then places a bundle of notes in the bucket. The charity collector reacts with surprise as she walks away.
Merci, madame.
Chantelle's cafe, day. Chantelle walks in and looks at Alan, 19, the apprentice chef mopping the floor.
Busy?
No, dead as usual.
It'll pick up. It always does.
The bell above the door rings as Mr. Johnson, 64, walks in wearing an expensive-looking suit and takes a seat.
See? Told you.
Not exactly regulars though, are they?
Good evening. Can I take your order?
I hope so. I'd like to join your supper club.
He takes a black business card out of his wallet with the words Supper Club on and hands it to Chantelle, who reacts.
Where did you get this?
A friend. A recently deceased friend.
Chantelle rips up the card and hands it back to him.
Sorry to hear that. But trust me when I say a man like you should not be joining a club like this.
Mr. Johnson grabs hold of Chantelle's wrist.
Please, I need your help. I'm begging you.
Let go of my wrist.
Sorry.
It's quiet. You get yourself away.
Sure.
Yeah. I'll not be long.
Alan smiles, then takes off his apron, puts his coat on and leaves. Chantelle locks the door, then walks back over to Mr. Johnson with her notepad and pen.
What do you want?
A drink would be nice. Some food would be even better. Supper club would be the icing on the cake.
Look, the food's expensive, and as for supper club, that type of dining's extortionate, regardless of the menu.
I'm good with that.
Okay. It's 100 to try the food. If you like it, then we can talk.
Mr. Johnson nods, then takes £100 out of his wallet and hands it over. Chantelle walks back into the kitchen and turns the gas hob on, then lowers some chips into the fryer. She gets a pint of water from the tap and walks back over to the table.
There you go. Your food won't be long.
Thank you.
Chantelle walks back into the kitchen and places a steak on the griddle pan, then prepares the salad. She plates up, then walks back over to the table.
Bon appetit.
Merci, madame.
The clock turns as Mr. Johnson savours every moment of his steak.
So,
I'll ask the question, if you don't mind.
sorry.
Is it just you who'd like to join?
No, me and my wife.
Oh, glad to hear that. After all, how do you say it in this country? He who eats alone chokes alone.
I've not heard that one before.
Figures. Look, I hold supper club every 3 months.
Is there not one sooner?
I could do tomorrow, but perhaps you'd both like a little more time to think.
No, tomorrow would be fine. A lot can change in 3 months.
Okay. I just need to run through some security questions. Any neighbors?
Nope, we live in a remote farmhouse.
CCTV?
Yes, but I can show you where that is.
Okay. Do you have a griddle pan?
Yes,
Cheap pan?
top of the range.
I said a cheap pan, not a deep fat fryer.
I'm sure I could purchase one.
Well, make sure you do. Now, have you got any question for me?
Just one. What about cleaning up? You and I both know there's a certain stigma about this kind of thing.
Stigma or ignorance?
Either way, we've got kids, and although they are all grown up, we don't want people talking.
I understand. But rest assured, Mr. Johnson, I always cover my tracks.
Chantelle writes £50,000 on her notepad and then hands it to Mr. Johnson.
I'm sure you understand the risks reflect the price. Cash on arrival, and if you're happy to proceed, I'll see you tomorrow night.
Mr. Johnson leaves. Chantelle locks the door, then walks into the kitchen and wipes the CCTV. Interior. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson's farmhouse. Night. Mrs. Johnson, 64, a frail, wheelchair-bound emphysema sufferer, is sat opposite her husband at the table in front of a large open fire. She removes her oxygen mask to speak.
She due.
Supper time. Not long now, darling.
Is it really as good as they say?
Better. It's like heaven on a plate.
Chantelle's house. Night. Chantelle places the food into a box, then puts a white disposable overall on. She finishes packing her box, placing a box of matches, a bottle of tablets, and a stethoscope on top of the food. Chantelle drives her black sports car along a long gravel farm track and parks. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson's farmhouse. Night.
I'll go and let her in. Glad you could make it.
Mr. Johnson opens the briefcase to show her the cash as she puts on a pair of nitrile gloves and a hairnet.
What about the cheap pan?
Come in. I'll show you the kitchen.
She follows him into the kitchen and puts the box on the table. A griddle pan and a frying pan are on the hob.
You have been busy. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce you to my wife, if that's okay.
Mrs. Johnson, pleased to meet you. I've heard a lot about you.
Mrs. Johnson takes her oxygen mask off to speak.
Likewise. He tells me the food's to die for.
That's what supper club is all about. I'll go and make a start.
Thank you.
Chantelle walks into the kitchen and turns the oven on, then places some snails in the oven. She peels some potatoes, then washes her hands and picks up a bottle of red wine before walking back into the living room.
Ce ventage goes parfait with the main course. Now, can I get you a starter?
Chantelle pours the wine and reacts as Mrs. Johnson struggles to catch her breath.
Let's not waste time. I'd prefer it if you just served the main course.
Chantelle looks at Mr. Johnson, who nods, before finishing off his wine and pouring himself another glass.
I'll save a bottle for later. I always like to toast new members.
I like that. Nice touch.
Chantelle walks back into the kitchen and throws the snails in the bin. She prepares the fillet steaks, then walks back in to serve them.
For Madame, a medium rare filet. And for Monsieur, also a medium rare filet. Bon appetit.
Chantelle watches on from the kitchen as they dine. As soon as they finish, she collects their plates.
Was everything okay with your meals?
Mrs. Johnson nods, but doesn't look well, and places her oxygen mask back over her mouth.
Can I get you a dessert?
Mr. Johnson looks at Chantelle and shakes his head.
And for Madame?
Chantelle looks at Mrs. Johnson, who indicates with her hand that she does not want dessert.
How's about that toast? We're running on empty here.
Certainly.
She places 2 large white tablets on a plate, then tops up their glasses.
Thank you. I think it's time to raise a glass. Don't you?
Chantelle nods sympathetically, then watches as they collect their tablets and stare at each other across the table.
To a great life and a peaceful eternity. God, I love you.
I love you too.
They smile, and both place their tablets in their mouth, then wash them down with their wine. A couple of seconds later, Mrs. Johnson reacts, then slumps forward onto the table unconscious. Chantelle looks at Mr. Johnson. He opens his hand to show his uneaten tablet.
Sorry. I just couldn't go through with it. I hope you understand.
I understand. I just hope you understand too.
Understand what?
As he finishes his wine, she picks up the fire stoker and smashes it across the back of his head, sending blood splatter across the wall and leaving him slumped, motionless on the table.
Nobody survives supper club, and if they did, well, there'd be no more supper club.
She smiles as she places the stoker in his wife's hand, then walks into the kitchen. She turns the hob on and watches as the chip pan ignites, then grabs her bag and the cash on her way out. She drives away from the farmhouse as it's ablaze in the background. Town centre, day. Chantelle walks along a deserted cobbled street and makes eye contact with the charity collector, shaking his bucket.
Good morning.
It certainly is.
She smiles as she places a bundle of notes into the bucket. The charity collector reacts as she walks away.
Merci, madame.
Chantelle's cafe, day. She walks in and looks at Alan, sat down, reading the paper.
Busy?
No, then again.
It'll pick up. It always does.
The bell above the door rings as another customer walks in.